The year was 1967. While America's youth marched in protest and danced in the glow of a cultural revolution, something entirely different was brewing behind the locked doors of Chevrolet's secretive performance division. Inside what insiders called the Skunk Works, a group of rebellious engineers was quietly building something radical, a compact, high-revving V8 that would disrupt motorsport, challenge corporate rules, and earn a place in history as one of the most misunderstood engines ever created. This was the story of the Chevrolet 302, an outlaw motor that didn't just roar on the track. It whispered corporate betrayal, engineering genius, and industrial defiance. This engine wasn't designed to please the market or boost quarterly profits. It was born to win. Its mission? Slide beneath strict racing regulations and dominate the fiercely competitive Trans Am racing scene. While General Motors was busy promoting family sedans and big block muscle, a rogue team quietly stitched together parts from the 283 and 327 engines to craft something new, a 302 cubic inch powerhouse capable of screaming past 7,000 RPM when most V8s choked at 5,500. They did it all without boardroom permission, sneaking prototypes out the back door and working long nights to evade internal restrictions. At the heart of this mechanical rebellion was Vince Piggins, Chevrolet's performance maestro, joined by brilliant minds like Dick Kynath and Corvette legend Zora Arkus Duntov. Together, they broke the mold, sometimes literally, borrowing a 4-inch bore from the 327 and combining it with the 3-inch stroke of a 283 to land right under the 305 cubic inch limit set by Trans Am rules. The result was the birth of a monster, the 302. This engine wasn't just a collection of parts, it was a battlefield blueprint. Internally, it featured forged steel crankshafts, solid lifter camshafts, forged pistons, and an aggressive 11-to-1 compression ratio. The high-rise aluminum intake, adapted from a confiscated Ford GT40 manifold, made the setup even more surreal. Official ratings pegged its power at 290 horsepower, but insiders knew the truth. It was comfortably pushing 350 to 375 horses. Mechanics gave it nicknames like the Deuce and Screaming Mouse, not only for its size, but for the banshee wail it made at full throttle. Its components were built to survive war. Shot-peened connecting rods, Magnafluxed internals, and oiling systems with hidden passages. Features found only in race engines were all crammed into a block sold as a production item. And those double hump cylinder heads? They were borrowed straight from Chevrolet's secret Daytona and Sebring test beds. Its debut in the Z/28 Camaro would change racing forever. The car tore through tracks, from Riverside to Watkins Glen, outpacing and outlasting Ford's own 302-powered Boss Mustangs. At one famous Trans Am race, Mark Donohue pushed his Z28 past Parnelli Jones' Mustang on the final lap, proving once and for all that Chevy's 302 wasn't just competitive, it was dominant. "They said we cheated," Penske later said in an interview. "We didn't cheat, we just out-engineered them." But the engine's success wasn't without consequences. As the Z28's racing reputation grew, it began threatening the very foundation of GM's product strategy. Sales of big block models, including the Corvette and Camaro SS, started feeling the pressure. Why would a buyer spring for a heavier, more expensive 396 when a nimble Z28 with a 302 could do the same job and handle better? Whispers turned to memos. Executives saw a problem. Internal documents reportedly labeled the Z28 as a threat to Corvette sales, and the solution wasn't to celebrate the success, it was to shut it down. Production of the 302 quietly began to slow. Marketing was cut. By 1970, the engine was gone, replaced with Kamer, emissions-friendly alternatives that wouldn't stir up internal competition. Even as racers and performance enthusiasts begged Chevrolet to keep the 302 alive, even in small numbers, they were met with silence. The message from the top was loud and clear. The 302 had crossed the line. It had proven that greatness could come from the edges, from rebellion, not from boardroom strategy. And for that, it was erased. Today, the Chevrolet 302 stands as more than just an engine. It's a symbol of everything that happens when innovation meets resistance. It's the untold chapter of a company at war with itself, a masterpiece born from defiance and buried by profit. Some engines make noise. The 302 made history. Move that felt more like espionage than engineering, Chevrolet insiders reportedly smuggled technical specs to private racers, ensuring that the 302 engine continued to roar long after its official production had ended. Though born in secrecy, the engine thrived in underground drag scenes and street circuits across the country. Its influence didn't stop there. The bore-to-stroke ratio of 1.33 to 1, a daring formula in the late 60s, would later echo in modern performance engines like the LS7. One Chevy engineer put it best: every LS motor has a little 302 in its DNA. That rebellious design spirit lives on. The 302 had to be shut down not because it failed, but because it succeeded too well. It pushed the boundaries of what was possible for a small block engine. It challenged the profit models of big block performance cars and threatened the hierarchy within GM itself. This engine wasn't just powerful on paper, it was dominant where it mattered most, on the racetrack. From 1968 to 1969, the Camaro Z28 with its 302 power plant didn't just compete, it became a feared predator in the Trans Am series. Under the skilled hands of drivers like Mark Donohue, the Z28 evolved from an experimental project into a full-blown motorsports dynasty. The results were hard to ignore. 10 victories in the 1969 season alone told a story that boardroom memos couldn't hide. Ford, Dodge, AMC, each brought their best to the field. But pit crews watched in frustration as the Chevy 302 held up lap after lap at 7,000 RPM, while their engines needed rebuildings. It wasn't just competitive, it was borderline invincible when tuned right. What made the engine even more legendary was its adaptability. Though built for road racing, it found success in drag racing, hill climbs, and even endurance events. It wasn't a specialist, it was an all-around threat. Drivers who learned to stay in its narrow power band unlocked a whole new level of performance. And today, that reputation has translated into incredible collector demand. Finding a numbers-matching Z28 with the original 302 engine has become like striking gold. Auction prices often soar past $150,000, and rare variants with central office production orders can fetch double that. So why the obsession? It's partly scarcity. Only around 20,000 Z28s were built with this engine, but mostly it's the symbolism. The 302 represents the last moment before the muscle car era bowed to emissions laws and corporate risk aversion. Each casting number, each date code is a breadcrumb tracing back to a time when engineers built for performance, not permission. Today, original parts from the 302, intake manifolds, lifter cams, forged cranks, are so valuable they've created an entire shadow industry around authentication. Experts use everything from metallurgical scans to microscopic casting mark comparisons to verify legitimacy. It's not unlike a forensic investigation, one where the evidence is steel and the story is automotive rebellion. Even though the 302 officially ended decades ago, its spirit still echoes through modern engineering. Look at today's LS small blocks with their over-square designs and love for high rates of RPM. The influence is unmistakable. When GM launched the 7,000 RPM capable LS7 for the Corvette Z06, they weren't starting from scratch, they were continuing legacy. Even rival brands seem to have learned from the 302. Ford's Coyote engines and Dodge's updated Hemis incorporate similar philosophies: lightweight rotating assemblies, balanced geometry, and cylinder heads built for airflow. What the 302 proved, and what car enthusiasts still demand, is that engines should be more than spec sheets. They should feel alive. And like the 302, they should always promise just a little more than they officially claim. Even now, performance builders and underground racers construct modern interpretations of the 302 using current technology to push the concept further. These aren't clones, they're successors. They uphold a belief that performance should come from passion, not policy. In the end, the Chevrolet 302 became more than an engine. It became a symbol, a case study in what happens when engineering brilliance slips through the cracks of corporate caution. For 3 brief years, it proved what was possible when pure performance was the only goal. Though GM ended its run, the 302 didn't die. It just went underground. At vintage races, car shows, and collector garages, original 302s still live, still scream, and still inspire the same question from gearheads and historians alike. What if? What if GM had chosen to double down on it? What if emissions regulations hadn't reshaped the industry? What if the corporate structure had embraced the 302's potential rather than reportedly fear its consequences? Its story was never fully told in press releases. It was told through lap times, tire smoke, and the wide grins of those lucky enough to drive it. To this day, it remains one of the most fascinating what-could-have-been moments in American automotive history. The idea of a caned valve version of the 302 being prepped for production, borrowing airflow tricks from the Mark V big block, feels like something from an alternate timeline. Engineers were reportedly experimenting with splayed valve setups to improve combustion and airflow, pushing prototypes to 450 horsepower in 1968, long before those figures were considered realistic for small displacement streetcars. Pairing that setup with a cross-ram intake only amplified its high RPM performance. Sadly, it never made it into production. Had it done so, the Z28 might have redefined the entire muscle car era. Was the 302 the greatest engine GM ever killed? It's a question many still ask. While the engine is long gone from production, its legend lives on, and in many ways, it still haunts Detroit. Maybe GM's decision to shut it down created a new chapter in performance evolution, or maybe it robbed the world of a generation of dominance. What's certain is this: the 302 wasn't just a motor, it was a moment. And moments like that don't fade, they echo, one high-rev scream at a time.